As the wheels of time turn, ages come and go, and in their passing all that once flourished and was familiar gives way to that which is fresh, new, and unfathomable, until eventually that too becomes familiar and then forgotten, as the cycle continues and the age turns again. And though these cycles of birth, life, death, and rebirth may give the impression that history is simply repeating itself, there are many today who sense that a quickening has begun, and that with it, it is bringing unprecedented change. This acceleration is marked by the increasing intensity of global events, and by the rising temperature of nearly every planet in our solar system. While here on Earth, time itself seems to be speeding up and chaos mounting as phenomenal shifts occur in our physical and perceptual realities with increasing rapidity. This event, which many ancient cultures have prophetically termed the shift of ages, has begun, and it marks our entry into the final stages of our long-awaited return to one. For it is commonly understood both in the realms of science and spirituality that everything has come from one, and that to one we shall return. And even though humanity's mounting global conflicts seem to have brought the planet as far from oneness as it is possible to get, it is our intention with this presentation to explore how the unfolding of a series of escalating events between now and the end of the Mayan calendar on December 21st, 2012, could serve to bring humanity to an unprecedented experience of oneness with each other, the earth, and all living things. That said, it is important to note here that although we have awakened to the possibility that our experience of the world could be greatly altered by December 21st, 2012, it is not our intention with this presentation to prophesy events as they are going to occur, but rather we intend to merely present some possibilities that might serve to expand people's perspectives of what could be. For we believe that by expanding our imaginations to explore possible future events, we may prevent ourselves from reacting in fear should the previously unimagined become manifest. And as a result of having already experienced these events in our minds, we will be more centered and able to see the opportunities they present should they or something similar occur. And so, with this understanding of the power of imagination as a means by which we may navigate the unknown, this presentation will not only explore what sorts of events could occur between now and December 21st, 2012 that might lead to the end of the world as we know it, but we will also look at how such events, regardless of how challenging they may seem, could serve to bring humanity to a global experience of unity consciousness that would then lead us into a harmonious new existence and to our return to the long prophesied experience of heaven on earth. For years now, people all around the planet have been waiting for events to unfold by the end of the year 2012 that they believe will bring either the birth of a harmonious new reality or the end of the world. This anticipated period of great change and purification, commonly referred to as the shift of ages, has been foretold in the tales and prophecies of countless cultures around the world, many of which speak of an approaching time of unparalleled chaos and challenge that will eventually give way to a golden age of peace and enlightenment. Though to many, shifting from our current state of rising global conflict to one of worldwide peace and harmony may seem like an impossible leap, our own journey has shown us that all of the world's outer conflicts can be immediately solved by making an inner shift back to one. For it has been said that all of the suffering of the world stems from our belief that we are separate, and that therefore one may free themselves from their suffering by shifting to a perspective that will allow them to see their oneness with all. It is this profound power of perspective to instantly change our reality that is reflected in the familiar phrase which states that in order to change the world, one has only to change their mind. For if one is able to consider that everything has come from one, just as the individual leaves of a tree have all come from the same seed, then one may see that since we have all come from the same source, we have actually always been and will always be one. And when one learns to see that we are always one, then one might also learn to see that the only thing that separates us from our oneness with everything is our belief that we are separate. Thus, the return to one is the soul's journey through countless lives and experiences, whose challenges and triumphs exist solely to assist the traveler's remembrance of their oneness with all. And there are those who believe that the truth of our oneness is never so easy to see as it is during the accelerated events that occur during the shift of the ages and the birth of a new world. But what is this shift? And how could it possibly result in the birth of a new world and humanity's return to one? To answer these questions, one might consider some of the popular perspectives concerning the event of the shift and the phenomenal opportunities that it presents to every soul on earth during these days of great change. Though one of the more popular perspectives views the shift as some grand event that is going to occur in the outer physical world or in the cosmos at some point between now and December 21st, 2012, bringing either salvation or destruction to the world, there are others who believe that the shift is happening right now, and in fact that it has been and will always be happening. For these people believe that the shift can be experienced at any moment by anyone who is willing to make the internal shift back to one, where instead of seeing all beings and events of the world as separate and chaotic, the seeker learns to see that every aspect of existence is serving the divine plan, by giving humanity the opportunity to seek an understanding of themselves and the world that will allow them to love all things as one. However, today, our thoughts and awareness have moved about as far from one as it is possible to get, as humanity's dualistic perspectives and survival of the fittest mentalities have served to divide the world into dueling pairs of opposites, where many believe that they are good while others are evil, that they are light while others are dark, and that they are right while others are wrong. As a result, this divided perspective of existence has every human living for themselves, operating by his own personal will in an attempt to find inner peace by shaping the outer world according to his own likes and dislikes. However, what so many people are realizing today is that the peace we seek cannot be found by creating change in the world outside oneself. For true peace and change can only be found within. And we may see the truth of this when we consider that all around the world there are nearly 7 billion people who are trying to effect change in the world outside themselves in order to make others and the world match their vision of what is right so that they can find peace inside. However, when we realize that there are 7 billion people with 7 billion different visions of what the world should be like, then we may see that that peace we seek can never be attained by trying to shape the physical world according to our dualistic ideals of right and wrong, as our conflicting views will always result in the paradoxical need to fight for peace. And thus we may see that the only way to find true everlasting peace is to learn to be at peace with the way things are. And though finding a way to be at peace with whatever comes in one's life may seem easier said than done, there are those who have experienced that such a feat can be attained by simply shifting one's perspective from the material to the spiritual. This inner shift occurs when one stops placing all importance on the struggles and seeming separation of the physical world, and learns to see the essential spiritual purpose that is served by everything in existence. For if one can consider that it is their fear that causes them to desire the world and others to change, then they may see that it is their love that enables them to allow all things to be what they are. And when one awakens to the possibility that everything exists to encourage us towards love's higher planes of acceptance, compassion, and forgiveness, then one may come to see that we could not reach the highest heights without facing and learning to love the darkest depths. For truly it is the darkness that inspires one to seek the light. And as one realizes that the darkness of their life has played a part in making them who they are, by inspiring them towards a greater love for all, then might they learn to see that in fact that darkness is a part of them. And when one is able to consider their oneness with the darkest parts of themselves and the world, then might they learn to see their oneness with all that is. Thus it is at that moment, when one stops seeking to change the world outside of himself in order to find peace, and starts looking within, that one takes their first step on the long journey back to one. And though the road home is long and fraught with challenge, faith is the steadfast friend who will support the weary traveler during her return to one. For when one has faith that all beings and events exist for the divine purpose of encouraging us to seek and find that eternal peace inside, then we may learn to see that all is in fact serving the divine, and therefore all is divine. And by thus establishing faith that every event that happens in one's life occurs to assist their soul's evolution, one may come to see that salvation is not a person, place, or prize. It is a state of mind. For in this faithful state, and the love that accompanies it, one is able to face and flow through all of life's challenges in grace and gratitude. Thus it is this ability to see all as one and all as divine that marks the individual's inner shift and return to one. And so while some people believe that the approaching shift will be an external earthly or cosmic event, and others an internal evolution, there are still others who believe that the shift that is about to happen will be both. These people find truth in the familiar phrase, conflict breeds consciousness, and believe that many humans need some major shifts in their outer physical reality in order to encourage them to make the inner shift that will enable them to return to one. Thus it is thought by some adherents to this perspective that the physical events that are set to unfold in the next few months leading up to December 21st, 2012, have been designed to escalate to such a dramatic level that most of humanity will be faced with the possibility of their own death, and the loss of everything that they have worked to achieve in the material world, all of which would occur for one divine purpose. For in a world where so many are living only for material achievement and survival, it will not be until that material reality is threatened with extinction, and when money and luxury fail to satisfy our needs for peace and comfort, that the majority of people will awaken to the worthlessness of material wealth and success, and thereby be inspired to seek inwards to find a new purpose and meaning for life. And in so doing, many will finally understand the words that they have been uttering for so long, which state that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but rather we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And thus when the events of the next few months have served their divine purpose, and when the death and destruction have shaken us from our material obsessions and given birth to our awareness of the eternal spirit that connects us all, we will learn to see the world in a new way, where even death and destruction, which humanity has denied and feared for so long, are seen to have a place and a purpose for which to be thankful and loving. And as these increasingly intense events unfold in the coming months, they will teach humanity the lessons of pride and humility, by demonstrating the futility of our efforts to control the world outside of ourselves. And when people finally tire of wishing that the world was something that it isn't, and when they learn to be at peace with the way things are, for they see it all as part of the divine plan, then may they also learn to see that exerting one's personal will to try to stop these events from happening would be like trying to stop others from having the same opportunity for learning. For it is our selfishness and our ignorant use of free will that has brought us collectively into our present state of existence. Therefore, perhaps it is only by a 180-degree reversal, through selflessness, through the complete and utter surrender of ourselves and our personal will to the divine will of the Tao, that we may allow the forces of true change and redemption to work through us and liberate us completely from the unholy illusion of this world. And for this reason, some believe that it will be the tremendous shifting of our outer events in the months between now and December 21st, 2012, that will inspire humanity's inner shift, helping them realize that we cannot, nor are we meant to change our outer world in order to find peace, but rather we are urged to turn inwards, to seek and find the eternal peace that comes when one learns to see the divine purpose and perfection of all. And it is with this unified perspective of existence that one learns to relinquish my will for thy will, thereby realigning himself with the divine will and marking their long-awaited return to one. So when might these major changes occur in our outer reality that will encourage humanity to make its inner shift back to one? Although such spiritual seeking is met with little success in today's world, because of the extreme difficulty in perceiving our oneness with all in a vibrational field that is as psychically polluted as that of the Earth, during our planet's spiraling journey through the cosmos, there arise periods when the Earth returns into the field of influence of high vibrational energies, which allow the process of integration to proceed more easily and rapidly. For just as the movement of the Earth, Sun, and Moon in relation to one another shifts the Earth from the paralyzing dark of night to the revealing light of day, so too does our planet's interactions and alignments with other parts of the cosmos affect the energies and experiences here on Earth. Thus it is thought by some that our Earth, which has been moving through a particularly murky section of space, is about to emerge into a new field of redeeming energies, whose increased frequencies and light will dispel the shadows of our ignorance, thereby allowing us to see the world in a new way. All around the world there exist ancient cultures and wisdom keepers whose texts and teachings reveal knowledge of such periods having happened in the past, while some even hold prophecies telling of the impending return of these forces of salvation. However, here again it is essential to understand that this returning Redeemer is not a physical personality of majestic stature residing somewhere outside the dense material world, but is essentially an impersonal divine unifying consciousness manifesting itself as light, love, and wisdom in a field of cosmic rays emanating from the center of our galaxy. Thus the return actually refers to the Earth's cyclic re-entry into this higher vibrational field, at which point we are anointed by its divine light and influence. Of the many ancient cultures and wisdom keepers that speak of the returning light of transformation and the opportunities it presents, one that has become increasingly vocal and present in the world today is that of the Mayans. Though for years popular media has wrongfully insinuated that the convergent completion of 9 of the Mayans' 24 calendars on December 21st, 2012 predicts the end of the world, to say that these completions mean the end of the world would be as erroneous as proclaiming doom every New Year's Eve. For these are huge wheels of time that turn, and like our current calendar, when its 12-month cycle is completed, it simply begins again. Thus, just as our yearly calendar marks the completion of our Earth cycle around the Sun, so too do the various calendars in the Mayan culture represent the completion and beginning of cycles that they have come to recognize in their lives, such as the 260-day Tzolk'in calendar, which measures the 9-month human gestation period, and the Ajah cycles, which measure 5,200-year periods of shifting elemental energies. Thus, the completion of the 9 Mayan calendars on December 21st, 2012, rather than predicting the end of the world, merely indicates the completion of certain cycles recognized in the Mayan culture. including what the grandfathers call a return to the beginning of a great 26,000-year cycle known as the Nimahab. The closing of this cycle marks the Earth's re-entry into a higher vibrational plane, whose cleansing frequencies some believe will serve to shatter the illusion of separation, allowing humanity to once again perceive its oneness with all. A further understanding of the dramatic yet liberating shift in consciousness that we are approaching as we near December 21st, 2012, may be realized through an examination of what the Mayans refer to as the Ajah cycles, as described by Mayan elder and shaman Carlos Barrios in his publication titled The Book of Destiny. Here Barrios informs us that the 26,000-year Nimahab long count is divided into 5 equal periods of 5,200 years, which are referred to as the Ajah. These Ajah cycles, also known as suns, each relate to the movement of the Sun and Earth through different areas of the Milky Way galaxy, and are distinguished by the predominating energies that shape the consciousness of their times. For example, the predominant consciousness of the first sun, which began some 20,800 years ago, was ruled by a feminine, matriarchal society and by the element of fire. This was a birthing period for our current version of humanity, during which our ability to create and work with fire played a key role in our species' development. Next, the second sun was ruled by a masculine patriarchal energy and by the element of earth. Here agricultural techniques and architecture were perfected, along with the systems and schematics for the refinement of urban design. The third sun then marked a return to the predominance of feminine energy, and a consciousness that developed surrounding the element of air. During this time, great advances were made in the psychic and spiritual sciences, including divination, art, and astronomy. Then came the fourth sun, our current cycle, which began some 5,200 years ago, and which is said will end on December 21st, 2012. As we have seen, the fourth sun has once again been ruled by a predominantly masculine energy, while our growing awareness surrounding the nature and intelligence of water has played a tremendous role in shaping our evolving consciousness. And now we approach December 21st, 2012, when it is said that we will shift into the long-anticipated experience of the fifth sun, a 5,200-year period whose new energies and awareness will bring balance to the opposing forces of our present-day duality consciousness, and lay the foundation for a never-before-experienced realization of our oneness with all. For according to the Mayans' Ajah prophecies, the fifth sun will, for the first time in this 26,000-year cycle, be governed by a balance of feminine and masculine energies. While our consciousness will be greatly changed by humanity's remembrance of the mysterious and forgotten fifth element known as ether, which is the substance that unites us all. It has been taught in ancient schools of thought and alchemy that ether is the substance upon which the universe is created. For this material, though similar to but much finer than smoke, has substance enough to carry and be shaped by our emotions, thoughts, and consciousness. Thus the casual thought of one may cause the ethers to stir, while the heightened emotions of many can whip the ethers into a spinning hurricane. In a similar manner, the sustained vision or belief of a person or group may shape the ethers into a blueprint of that vision. And if the vision is sustained long enough and fueled with enough belief, then eventually the 4 physical elements will wrap themselves around that blueprint and bring that vision into being. However, it is essential to realize here that the ethers are not shaped by one's conscious thoughts alone. For though one may focus their will and imagination to cure themselves of an ailment, if their efforts are motivated by fear, then that fear will reinforce a belief in the disease, and thus the more one wants their experience to change, the more their fear will strengthen its existence. Thus, as we enter the higher vibrational field of cosmic rays during our shift to the fifth sun on December 21st, 2012, humanity will have the opportunity to realize its oneness on a deeper level, as our increased awareness of the ethers will reveal that it has been through our collective hopes, fears, and beliefs, both conscious and unconscious, that we, together, have all made the world what it is today, while our desire for it to be something other than it is ensures that it will stay the same. For though the surface of the world may seem to change with the rise and fall of civilizations, as long as humanity holds on to its desire to make the world something other than it is, the desire to control this reality and the resulting state of conflict which has ruled the planet for so long will continue to shape and shake the world until eventually it is no more. Thus it is this mystery of how things may change when we let them be what they are that is referred to in the Tao Te Ching, which tells us, if you want something to be straight, you must allow it to be crooked. If you want something to be whole, let it be partial. For it is a universal law that all things are impermanent, and will therefore pass away in their own time, without the will or effort of man. Thus it is unnecessary to cause oneself or others suffering by desiring for something to change that will eventually pass on its own, while at the same time it is unreasonable to cause oneself suffering by desiring things to stay the same, which are sure to pass away. And so, in accordance with the law of impermanence, one may see that there is no need to do anything to change our reality, for in fact it is changing on its own. And as we allow nature to take its course, we may learn to see that reality is actually only changing because we are. One may understand this more clearly when they consider that rapid changes in our current world are occurring because the increased light coming from each of us is causing the shadows of falsehood and separation that have defined our current existence to become so dark that we now see them for what they really are. And as people all over the planet awaken to the illusions of our existence, our belief in this version of the world and its structures is fading, as a new vision is rising from the hearts and souls of humanity. Thus the old world is falling away, not because we are doing something to change it, but because we are coming to believe in something else. We are learning to see that the happiness and preservation of humanity does not depend on how strong we fight, but rather it depends on how deeply we love. And it is by thus that change may come, not by dismantling the existing system or demanding it to change, but by learning to love all that is for all it does. For if all that we perceive as dark in the world had not done such a good job of being dark, then we would never have recognized it in ourselves or in the world. And by thus offering love to ourselves and to the world, when before we offered only hate and conflict, we are effectively changing our world one perspective at a time. Yet as this process accelerates during our approach to December 21st, 2012, and our entrance into the fifth sun, those who are demonstrating their belief in the power of love over the love of power will by the strength of their belief inspire others to believe as well. For their ability to bring peace, love, and calmness to situations that previously inspired only fear, panic, and struggle will allow others to see the freedom that comes when one learns to love all things as they are, not as they wish they could be. And thus, inspired by the love and faith of others, our collective vision of oneness will allow a new reality to emerge. Having thus gained an understanding of the potential ways that our consciousness may be affected by the higher vibrational cosmic rays during our shift into the fifth sun on December 21st, 2012, it is important here to realize that these changes may not take place exactly on this date. For the calendar's entry into the fifth sun marks the date that the energetic shift occurs. But like a boulder on a hill, the bigger these cycles are, the longer they may take to get rolling. That said, the timing of our entry into the field of higher vibrational cosmic rays may be better understood by studying the cosmic events that accompany the completion of these great cycles, as they are relayed to us by Mayan elder and shaman Carlos Barrios in the Book of Destiny. According to Barrios, the Nimahab long count calendar is based on a 26,000-year cycle known as the precession of the equinox. This cycle measures the time that it takes for our Earth, which spins at an angle like a top, to complete one full rotation of its wobble. And it is this wobble that causes our view of the constellations to shift by 1 degree every 72 years, creating what are known as the astrological ages. Thus, as a result of this gradual changing of our night sky, the event that we will witness at the end of the long count calendar on December 21st, 2012, is that when the sun rises on the eastern horizon, it will appear to have moved into the center of our galactic plane. Though approximations of this alignment have been occurring once a year since 1980, with an exact alignment in 1998, 2012 will mark the first time in 26,000 years that the sun will appear to touch what is known as the dark rift that snakes its way along the galactic equator. The dark rift is a series of overlapping non-luminous molecular dust clouds that appear as a dark lane that divides the bright band of the Milky Way lengthwise. According to Mayan cosmology, this great rift with which the sun will align on December 21st, 2012, and take some 20 years to travel through, is a unique area of our night sky, which the Mayans believe is responsible for bringing spiritual rebirth. As a result of this extraordinary alignment, the sun and the plane of the ecliptic would then appear for the first time in 26,000 years to cross between the dark rift and an area of the galactic plane known as the Mayan sacred tree. This cosmic cross traced in the sky is considered to embody the sacred tree of life and is known to all of the world's spiritual traditions. This synchronistic return of the tree of life at the time that the sun aligns with the dark rift marks the return to the beginning of the long count calendar and the birth of a new humanity. For the Mayans believe that sometime around December 21st, 2012, our sun, which acts like a lens, translating rays from the cosmos and then radiating them onto the planets in our system, will align with a sacred portal hidden in the darkness of the Great Rift. At the time of alignment, our sun will radiate the ultra-high frequency rays from the rift onto the earth, so marking the prophesied return of the anointing light and the long-awaited dawn of the fifth sun. Though the Mayan prophecies surrounding the Ajah cycles and the dawn of the fifth sun may provide a basic understanding of how and when the Earth's entrance into a field of higher vibrational cosmic rays could lead to humanity's increased realization of its oneness with all, it is imperative that people have an understanding of the changeable nature of prophecy. For the instant one looks into the future and then changes themselves, they are effectively changing their future as well. Thus, the key to understanding how and why prophecies change lies in considering the multidimensional nature of existence. For many people, when considering the possible scenarios that might occur during the shift of ages, have a tendency to fret over the fate of the world, fearing whether it will be saved or destroyed, while others who perceive the rising of dark and light forces around the planet are asking themselves, will we win or lose? However, what so few people understand today is that there will not just be one world or one experience as we approach the fifth sun on December 21st, 2012. For this is the time of the vast shift in consciousness, where the Earth's entry into the high vibrational field will stir the ethers, causing each one of us to find ourselves in a world of our own creation. And here it is essential to understand that it is our choice that determines what we will experience during the shift of ages and the birth of a new world. For every choice that is available to us in a given situation has multiple probability lines that lead to their various outcomes. Consider also that all probability lines are playing themselves out at the same time on parallel Earths, and that each probability line has its own vibration, determined by the frequency of the choice made. Thus, a choice made out of love will have a higher vibration than one made out of fear. And so, as our conscious self makes a decision, the vibration of our being shifts us to the probability line that matches our frequency, which we then experience as reality. Thus, as a result of our choices, we are constantly shifting to different parallel realities, while the predominant vibrational state one chooses to be in ultimately determines the parallel Earth that they will experience. Here too it is helpful to understand that the probability line for each frequency has a predetermined outcome that will play itself out as the old world closes and a new one is birthed during our approach to the fifth sun. However, although the events and outcomes of each of the parallel Earths is laid out in their individual paths of destiny, we each have the freedom to choose our own unique fate. For as our choices shift us through the different probability lines, our journey through the range of frequencies and experiences will shape our lives into their own unique melodies, which will rise to their crescendo at the moment we choose the destined outcome that best suits our part in the grand symphony of life. That said, it is of utmost importance to understand here that your choice of what you experience as reality is not based on what you want to happen or what you would choose for yourself, but rather it is based on the frequency that you choose to vibrate in. The subtle danger that exists here is that many people, when they focus on what they want, hold within some small part of themselves the fear that they will not get it. And thus their experience of reality will be determined by the frequency of their fear. While someone who is able to see the divine purpose and perfection of all as it is will experience a reality that is attuned to the love and gratitude that they are radiating. It is this wisdom of maintaining one's frequency by letting things be what they are that is expressed by the Taoist sage Lao Tzu when he says, "Accept the world as it is, and the Tao will be luminous inside you." With this understanding of how we move between parallel realities, one may realize how it is possible for prophecies to change, and how each one of us could have our very own experience of reality during our shift into the fifth sun. For although stories are surfacing in our present probability line about the plans of a dark cabal to declare martial law and plunge the planet into World War III, it is important to understand that though some people may experience these things, others simply will not. Similarly, there are versions of our world that will find solutions to the conflicts and challenges of our present existence, that will allow them to move into a golden age of peace and enlightenment, while other versions of our world will bring themselves to a destructive end. And here again, the key that determines what one will experience lies in their choice. For one who chooses out of fear to continually focus on a dualistic reality, where supposedly evil forces are plotting against the seemingly good of the world, will by their frequency and belief keep themselves locked in the probability line of fear, where they will experience increasingly frightening events that, unless they shift out of fear, will lead them to the ultimate destruction of the earth. Meanwhile, at the very same time, on a parallel earth, those who have awakened to the part that we have all played in making the world what it is will stop demanding that others change, and will start empowering themselves and seeking ways that they may work together to find a new way. While on yet another earth, those who have come to recognize the essential role that darkness has played in revealing the shadows in themselves will be inspired to love's higher planes of compassion and forgiveness, where they will come to see that in fact the light and dark are one. And thus, filled with an unconditional love for all, the concepts of light and dark will dissolve as they move into a new experience of reality together as one. For just as those who have chosen fear will experience increasing fear during our approach to December 21st, 2012, so too will those who choose love experience increasing love as the old world closes and a new one begins during the dawn of the fifth sun. Having considered the power that choice has to shift our experience of reality, we realize how difficult it can be to let go of one's beliefs and perspectives to a degree that will allow them to experience a new existence. For there is truth in the familiar phrase which states that humans are creatures of habit. And it is because of humanity's resistance to change that we have been given the great gift of the prophecies. For the prophecies' greatest purpose is to serve as instigators of change. Thus, the majority of prophecies that are revealed to humanity today tell us of what could occur if the predominant consciousness of the planet were to continue along its existing probability line. And because the predominant consciousness on Earth in the past few centuries has been based in the lower frequencies of fear and greed, many of these prophecies speak of an approaching time of cataclysm and cleansing, where the parallel earth that exists in the frequency of fear and greed will be brought to its predestined outcome of death and destruction. However, what is important to remember here is that as soon as we look into the future, it immediately begins to change, because we do. For upon hearing the prophecies' tales of the future destruction of the earth, there are those here among us who through some innate design feel called simply to believe. These people, rather than denying the possibility of change, are called to embrace it. And so with love and daring, they turn to face the unknown, both inside themselves and in the outer world, in search of perspectives that will allow them to understand why we are arriving where we are, and how to get to where we're going. These brave and loving souls are the way-showers, who on their journey cannot resist the call to share their questions and discoveries with the world. And as they gain a perspective of what they may do to make even the small corners of their existence a little happier, these people begin bringing these changes into their own lives. And thus, through hearing the prophecies, the world has begun to change. Until eventually, even those who have had no interest in the words of prophecy are soon affected by the love and conviction of those who show the way. For in a world of increasing conflict and corruption, the way-showers' practice of peace and oneness has become water for the world's thirsty souls, as those who previously saw no need for change in their lives are instantly awakened to new possibilities for being. Thus, filled with a love and willingness to return to a way that shows honor and respect for all, a new wave of way-showers is born. And over time, by simply having looked at a possible future, its probable outcomes have begun to change. Meanwhile, those who have been unable to break out of their old habits and beliefs, to a degree that would allow them to shift past the prophesied probability line of death and destruction, will be inspired to do so. as all the corridors of time begin to work themselves to their predetermined conclusions during the end of the age and the shift to a new reality. For as all of the probability lines determined by the base motivations of fear, hatred, and greed move towards their predestined outcomes, each one will vibrate so purely with its frequency that the extreme discomfort that it causes will urge all those who are still holding on to their old ways to finally let go. Thus, one who has chosen to feel extreme hatred may find themselves approaching the climactic end of the world that epitomizes hatred, which may be realized as a world torn apart by war and heading towards total nuclear devastation, while someone who has chosen the path of extreme greed and fear may find themselves teetering on the brink of madness as they sit alone in an underground bunker counting their hoards of cash and food while chaos reigns above. However, it is essential to remember here that the instant someone chooses to change their existing course, they immediately shift into a new probability line. Thus, the person whose greed and fear would have them die alone and insane, surrounded by piles of food and money, will instantly change his reality the moment he awakens to his greed and chooses to love instead by sharing some of what he has with others. Similarly, one who has chosen out of hatred to fight to the death will immediately shift their outcome by putting down their guns and seeking out a way to bring peace to others. Thus we may see the truth that has been echoed through all time, that indeed love is the way. For no matter what actions one performs as their present probability line moves toward its predetermined outcome, as long as they are doing it not for themselves, but out of their love for all, their frequency of unconditional love will raise them to the parallel earth, where love's predestined outcome for the end of the age will culminate in the full realization of our oneness with all. That said, this love for all is an important distinction to make, because someone who is performing actions such as causing violence to others out of what they feel is a love for those they are trying to protect is actually serving the self and vibrating in the frequencies of hatred and fear. For the act of reserving love only for those who treat you well is a limiting love that will inevitably prevent one from reaching their fullest potential. While one who dedicates each action to the love of all will vibrate in love's higher planes, where their realized oneness with everything they experience will free them from all of the world's perceived conflict and struggle. For when they see that everything exists only to urge them towards a deeper love, then they may realize that there is no longer a need to fight, as even life's greatest challenges may be met with a heart full of love and gratitude. And thus it will be by choosing love in all those situations that we have habitually met with greed, hatred, and fear that we will purify our multidimensional selves on all levels of existence. For each time we meet a challenge and choose to love instead of resorting to our old habit patterns of fight or flight, we are demonstrating our evolution. And after having chosen love time and time again, we will eventually arrive at love's probable outcome at the turning of the age and the dawn of the fifth sun, where the ecstatic liberation that we will experience at the simultaneous realization of oneness with all will forever shift our consciousness into a new experience of life, where everyone has chosen to live by the truth that love is the way. It is said that this event will occur when the Earth returns into the field of high vibrational cosmic rays, at which point the increased light and frequencies will result in the dissolving of the corridors of time, which serve to divide all of the simultaneous realities of existence so that we do not perceive them all at once. For many of us have heard the phrase that all time is simultaneous, and it is believed by some that we will see the truth of this when the densest concentration of high vibrational rays cause the time locks to lift, and all realities to merge and blend and change as each one of us is reconnected with our higher self and its full awareness of our oneness with all. Another point of great interest as it relates to the prophecies in the corridors of time is that although each parallel existence, based on its rate of frequency, has its own unique story and outcome, there are events that occur at chosen points that are experienced in every probability line of existence. These multidimensional occurrences, known as primary events, are world-altering experiences, such as a profound scientific breakthrough or global crises, which serve to keep all of the probability lines moving in a similar direction by periodically unifying the collective consciousness in a series of shared experiences. It is also the dramatic nature of these events and the fact that they unite the collective consciousness in the shared experience and implications of what has occurred that makes these primary events unparalleled opportunities for people to jump out of the frequency of their existing probability lines and into a fresher experience of reality. For not only does the jarring effect of global shifting have the power to encourage people who have been resistant to change to make new choices to adjust to their altered reality, but it is also during these times of unified consciousness that one is more easily able to draw on the expanded perspective of the one mind, and thereby see the world in a way that was previously unavailable to them. That said, it is thought by some that the numerous prophecies from around the world, which speak of an approaching period of great cataclysm and cleansing, are actually referring to a series of primary events set to unfold in the not-too-distant future, which will catapult the world and each one of us toward our chosen destinies in the corridors of time.
I am ready for the next step in humanity's evolution.
And now we must seek to unite with others.
The time has come to live for each other.
Though for the past few years there have been many guesses about what primary events might occur to set the world changes in motion that so many people around the planet feel are coming, the important thing to remember here is that as we approach the fifth sun, the walls between the corridors of time are thinning, thereby resulting in the colliding of alternate realities, which will ultimately climax when all realities merge into one, at some point during the Earth's re-entry into the field of high vibrational cosmic rays. Thus, as the walls of the corridors of time continue to dissolve, we have entered a period of tremendous flux, where our experience of the Earth is constantly changing, in accordance with the rapid shifts in our individual frequencies. As a result of this, many people have been experiencing a flip-flopping of reality, where it seems like every day, or even in each moment, they are being born into a new version of existence. For example, one day we hear that the global economy is near collapse, while on the next day it appears to be stronger than ever. On one day we hear the world is on the brink of World War III, and on the next, global peace talks are in process. While on yet another day, it seems possible that we are about to be wiped out by a huge red planet, which on the next day few people even remember. And though this increased flip-flopping between probability lines due to the colliding of our realities is causing many people who yearn for change to feel exhausted with the thought that change may never come, it is this increased shifting of realities that indicates that the change is well at hand. And it is this uncertainty, caused by this sudden flipping of realities, that has led to the proclamation of certain prophecies that the end will come like a thief in the night. So how, amidst this constant shifting of reality, might one prevent themselves from getting locked into a limiting probability line that will prevent them from reaching their highest potential? In answer to this question, one might consider that the surest way to lock oneself into a given experience is to focus their fear on it. For the instant that one chooses to focus their fear or any other low vibrational emotion, such as pride, greed, guilt, hatred, or envy on a situation or being, their emotions serve to entangle them in a destiny where they must find resolution with that thing, either by being destroyed by it or learning to love it. For just as fear is the surest way to lock one into the destructive outcomes of a lower vibrational probability line, so is love the surest way to free oneself from that destructive destiny, by allowing them to let go of their fear and hatred, so that they may lift themselves up to the higher experiences of compassion, forgiveness, and oneness. Thus, an example of how focusing one's fears on something can prevent them from reaching their highest potential may be seen by considering recent reports that are surfacing about a potential primary event that some believe will initiate a series of global changes leading us into the shift of the ages and the birth of a new world. Though there are many individuals involved in this story, for the sake of simplicity, we will focus on one of its central characters. That said, unbeknownst to many people in the world today, there are two very intriguing stories that are gaining popularity in the underground media. One of these stories suggests that the President of the United States is part of a secret one-world government that is working with the European Union and the United Nations to forcibly bring the people of the planet under the control of a new world order. This story has gained much credence in the past few years as the President has passed a series of controversial bills, drastically limiting the freedom of individuals, while giving the government almost unlimited control over its population, all of which some believe is in preparation for a hostile takeover of global control. An example of some of the more serious implications of these bills may be seen in the passing of the National Defense Authorization Act in December of 2011, which gives the President authority to indefinitely detain anyone, including U.S. citizens who are suspect of terrorism or supporting terrorists without a trial. This controversial bill also violates the Posse Comitatus Act passed in 1878 by making it legal for the U.S. military to be used to enforce laws on American soil. While another controversial bill passed on March 21, 2010, makes it mandatory that every U.S. citizen have a radio frequency identification chip and tracking device implanted no later than March 23, 2013. Though the passing of such bills, when added to the President's display of seemingly unconscionable foreign and business policy, does seem to support the story of his involvement in the creation of New World Order. In accordance with the flip-flopping of colliding realities, there is a new story that is rising in the underground media stream, which, contrary to the shadowy image of the President, seems to be setting Obama up as an almost Messiah-like figure. This developing story justifies Obama's support of corrupt foreign and business policies over the years, by stating that he is actually a double agent who has been working from the inside to gather information that will be used to ensure the mass arrest of the hundreds of corrupt bankers and politicians who are said to be responsible for the declining state of America and the world. According to this story, Obama, having now amassed sufficient information and support to secure his safety, will soon present the controlling forces of the world with an ultimatum, stating that they are to hand the power of the world over to a new governing body that is currently being put in place. Shortly after this ultimatum is delivered, Obama will then present the world governments, as well as the global public, with a new plan for supposed peace and prosperity. Stories surrounding this takeover indicate that there will be a period of global chaos as power is seized from the members of the old power system and control is transferred to the new authorities. During this time, any public resistance to the rising of the new authority would be quelled with the sanctioned use of military force. While in accordance with the recently passed NDAA, any of those caught resisting the new system may be indefinitely detained without a trial. Then, in the wake of what is said would be a few weeks of turmoil, steps would then begin to unfold Obama's proffered plan for global peace and prosperity. It is thought by some that this plan may involve the introduction of free energy devices and other groundbreaking technologies that will greatly benefit the Earth and humanity. While others say that these upcoming changes could also include a full disclosure of international involvement with extraterrestrial beings, which could even result in an orchestrated landing in partnership with alien races. And all of these miraculous things will be offered to those members of humanity who are willing to leave the power to choose the fate of the world in the hands of a small group of people, rather than taking responsibility themselves. Having thus explored two seemingly contrasting perspectives, it is our humble opinion that investing one's belief in either of these stories would be an act of fear, which would serve to lock one in an experience where the quality of their emotions would cause them increasing hardship and conflict, until such a time that they were willing to learn to love and let go of their negative emotions surrounding that situation. The truth of this is easy to see in the first situation. For in the first case, where the president is viewed as a member of a secret society with designs to forcibly take control of the world, one who focuses on their belief that the president is bad or evil will inevitably arouse feelings of fear, hate, or anger that would cause them to drop to an experience of reality on one of the lower vibrational probability lines. And if one chooses to hold on to their fear of the president and his New World Order for long enough, they will inevitably engage in a war against it, either in their heart or on the streets, which would then lock them into the probability line of that battle until such a time that they are either destroyed by that perceived darkness or they learn to love it. While on a subtler note, those who choose to believe the second scenario, where the president is portrayed as a heroic or even messianic figure who will bring magic, miracles, and much longed-for healing to the world, in exchange for the people's agreement to leave the power to control the planet in the hands of a chosen few, will, by their fear of assuming responsibility for their Earth and their actions, lock themselves in a probability line similar to our own, where we give our power to those who would limit our growth by denying us information that would free us from our cycles of greed, hate, and fear. However, there is another way. For if an event such as these were to occur in the coming months during our approach to the fifth sun, and the president or some other person were to rise up as either a tyrant or a supposed savior, we could choose to do something other than fight or follow in fear. We could choose to light the way with love. For now is our opportunity to empower ourselves, to empower the powers that were, to be true people. And this we may do in a time of turmoil, by turning our focus from the fearful acts of fighting and following to preserve the self, and instead with love, look to see how we may give to others. For if it can be considered that one's efforts to protect and attain for themselves are wrapped in the frequencies of hope and fear, then it may be realized that one who lives to give their all to others will vibrate with a love that will raise them to love's highest heights. And in this time of great transition and transformation, it is possible that our birthing moment may bring each of us to a point in our experience where we feel that all is lost and dark. Yet in this time we will remember that love is the way. And we will come to see that all that we are experiencing no matter how frightening or chaotic, are only neglected parts of ourselves screaming for our love. And remembering this, one way that we may pour our love into those darkest parts of ourselves in the world is by speaking these 10 words again and again. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Having thus explored how one's fear will keep them locked in an experience, while their love may set them free, let us now consider how certain prophesied primary events could assist in freeing humanity from its fears forever. For if one can consider the possibility that all fears are the product of a material-based consciousness, anchored in the desires to protect and preserve the self, then one may also agree that by shifting their perspective to a spirit-based consciousness, which sees the divine purpose and perfection of all, they may then come to relinquish their fear as they learn to replace it with a love for all. That said, although the fact that our world is changing as quickly as we are makes it impossible to guess what primary events might start the changes that will lead to our return to one, there are certain events that are mentioned in the prophecies of numerous cultures that are worthy of repeating here. For it is said in some circles that there will be a series of 7 escalating events that will occur on our 3-dimensional Earth, and that during each event we will be given the opportunity to choose a path of fear or love. Thus it will be at the instant of the first event, when humanity begins to make its choices, that our realities will split, and our paths will continue to meet and diverge as our choices in each moment bring us closer to our chosen outcomes. And though for those who choose the path of fear, the way will become increasingly fearful, the opportunity to choose love will always be there. While for those who choose love, they would do well to ask themselves how they could love more. For it will be their love for all that will serve to lift those who are seemingly lost from out of the darkest depths up to the highest heights. And so let us look at how certain prophesied primary events could lead to humanity's liberation from the fears of material-minded existence to the freedom of spiritual sight. For not all prophecies exist to tell us what is to be, but rather they tell us what we need to hear in order to inspire us to make changes to our inner being and perspectives that will ultimately assist our spiritual evolution. This is why, in many cases, prophecies such as the Hopi's story of the blue and red kachinas speak of tragic events, including the collapse of the material world and its systems, and even the ultimate demise of humanity. For it is a fact today that most humans in their obsession for material success and survival do not spare a second thought for their soul or spiritual self until they are faced with death, suffering, and the inevitable collapse of everything they have come to depend on in the material world. Thus we may see that these prophecies exist for the sole purpose of assisting humanity's evolution from a purely material-based consciousness to one of spirit. For it is by hearing these end-time prophecies and by seeing the signs of these prophecies fulfilled in current-day events that one is given the opportunity to fully realize the temporary nature of our physical reality, and thereby be inspired to seek out an understanding of the greater spiritual purpose of our existence. And though many in the world today will ignore these prophecies and stories of destruction because of their fear of contemplating the end of the material world as we know it, what so few people understand is that prophecies can be changed. For if it can be understood that the destructive stories and events detailed in prophecies exist for the sole purpose of encouraging a shift in consciousness, then it may be realized that once the collective mind has made that inner shift, the cataclysmic events that are no longer needed will eventually give way, as the group mind's vibrations are raised to match those of a harmonious new experience of reality, where there will be an entirely new set of lessons to be learned. Meanwhile, those who out of fear choose to deny our spiritual purpose and cling to the material world will be required to experience increasingly more destruction at an intensity that exactly matches that of their attachment to their material-based perspective of existence. For some, it will not be until they've experienced the complete destruction of the planet and all its life that they will finally be inspired to surrender their hate, fear, and pride, and see the spiritual purpose and oneness of everything in existence. Having thus awakened to the spiritual reality of all as one, their soul would then rise to the spirit level, at which point they would join all of the other souls, energies, and entities who have made the same choice to return to one. And here it is essential to realize that our reality is not, nor can it be changed by our fearful efforts of self-will, such as, let's focus our will to stop this from happening. For in any such efforts, the lower limiting vibrations of fear that motivate people to try to control events will create blockages that prevent the free movement of the higher vibrations of divine love, will, and wisdom throughout the body. That said, we may see that through proper attention and an understanding of prophecies such as the Hopi story of the blue and red kachinas, people are given the opportunity to make a choice that will greatly affect their spiritual evolution. And it is the importance of this choice in our soul's journey that is reinforced by the appearance of the glyph representing the word choice on the Hopi monument known as Prophecy Rock. Thus, the choice, which will become increasingly prominent in the days and months approaching December 21st, 2012, is: will we choose to cling to our material perspective of existence and live in fear and hate as our physical world crumbles around us? Or will we, like a phoenix rising from the flames, choose with faith and love to see the divine purpose of the decline of our material existence, whose passing will inspire a once material-obsessed humanity to shift to a more spirit-based perspective of existence? For it has been said in another message given to us by the Hopi people that this could be a good time. And for anyone who sees the spiritual purpose of the events that are set to unfold in the next few months, it probably will be. While those who wish to hold on to the old world and its ways might find the next few months extremely challenging. With this understanding of the divine purpose and the changeable nature of prophecy, let us now look at the Hopi prophecy of the blue and red star kachinas, which may be read in its entirety at the link below. This prophecy speaks of 4 celestial bodies that will appear in our skies, announcing that we have entered the end times. These 4 bodies are referred to in the prophecies as Pagongahoya and Palangahoya, the guardians of the North and South Poles, Nangasohu, referred to as the blue star kachina, and the red star kachina, also known as the purifier. It is said in the prophecy that in the final days we will look up in our heavens and we will witness the return of the 2 brothers, Pagongahoya and Palangahoya, who helped create this world in the birthing time. In the final days, the blue star kachina will come to be with his nephews, and they will return the earth to its natural rotation, which is counterclockwise. It is also stated in the prophecy that the return of the blue star kachina, who is also known as Nangasohu, will be the alarm clock that tells us of the new day and a new way of life, that a new world is coming. This is where the changes will begin. Although there were a number of stories surfacing in the fall of 2011 that paralleled the approach of a series of comets with the celestial bodies mentioned in the Hopi prophecy of the blue and red star kachinas, there are some compelling stories surfacing recently which suggest that the return of the blue and red stars could actually take place this year in 2012. These stories are based on an excerpt from the Hopi prophecies, which, like the thief in the night prophecy, suggests the sudden unforeseeable arrival of the end times, with the words, "When the blue star kachina dances in the plaza and removes his mask, The time of the great trial will be here. With this awareness of how sudden the arrival of the blue star kachina could come, these new stories which suggest their possible arrival this year seem increasingly possible as one considers the behind-the-scenes preparations that are taking place in areas around the world, such as America, with its new laws for domestic control and its recent stationing of troops on American soil, and Russia, which is due to complete the construction of 5,000 bomb shelters by June of this year. Also indicative of mass behind-the-scenes preparations are the series of international meetings and exercises that took place around the world last fall, such as the never-before-performed DEFCON 1 exercise in Denver, Colorado. The DEFCON 1 exercise is described as a maximum readiness alert drill for practicing response to nuclear attacks and other cataclysmic events. Last November also saw UNESCO's implementation of the massive Pacific-wide tsunami response exercise, which occurred on the same day as the first ever test of America's National Emergency Alert System, which was created in 1963 to allow the President to address the nation in the time of nuclear attack or other national crisis. Thus heeding the prophecies' warnings that the end will come like a thief in the night, these new stories surfacing today suggest that all of the planning and drills that took place last fall were in preparation for events that will be taking place around the same time this year in 2012. All of which heralds the return of the blue star kachina, whose appearance in our heavens the prophecies say would mark the beginning of the changes and signify that we were in the end times. For the prophecies state that not far behind the twins will come the purifier, the red star kachina, who will bring the great day of purification. From this, it is understood that tailing in the orbit of the blue star kachina will be some sort of supermassive celestial body, such as a star or planet, which will appear as a red ball in the sky, and whose passing, due to phenomenal gravitational and electromagnetic forces, would change the existence of humanity and the earth forever. For it is said in the prophecies that on the day of purification, the earth, her creatures, and all life as we know it will change forever, and that every living thing will be offered the opportunity to change from the largest to the smallest thing. It tells us that the way through this time is to be found in our hearts and through reuniting with our spiritual self. And then it reminds us that everything we experience is all a matter of choice, thus echoing the choice of whether we will face the end of the material world as we know it with fear and denial, or whether we will choose to see its divine purpose with love and faith, and thereby return to the original way where everyone and everything is seen as one and divine. Another prophesied primary event worth mentioning here is one that is echoed in the foretellings of numerous cultures around the world, ranging from those of the Hopis and Mayans to the Gnostic mystics, and even extending into the modern-day Catholic faith. Each of these cultures speak of an approaching 3 days of darkness, where we will either lose our sight, or the light of the sun will be obscured for 3 days, after which time the light will rise again. Though the details of how and when the prophecy might unfold remains much of a mystery, there are a few points and suggestions that are common throughout the various stories, which may prove to be very important should such an event occur. First of all, it is thought by many that the given duration of 3 days is largely a metaphor, for it is said that the experience of the 3 days of darkness will be so foreign that many people will lose all concept of time, thereby making the reference to the 3 days entirely irrelevant. The essential thing which most of the prophecies take care to stress is to remember that when the darkness comes, no matter how dark and permanent it may seem, it will eventually pass away, as all things do. Thus, aware of the impermanent nature of the darkness, the prophecies remind us of the importance of remaining calm in this time. We are urged to remain still and to use this time of complete darkness in our outer world as an opportunity to look toward the vast darkness within. For the prophecies suggest that it is in this time of blackness that we will be given the opportunity to free ourselves from the suffering that is caused by our desires. For one who does not know the darkness will pass will drive themselves mad with their desire for light. Just as surely as one who desires for the world to be what it was will lose himself to grief in the deepening pitch, while one who is able to let go of their desire to change what is happening, along with their attachment to the old world, will be able to find a sense of peace in the rising darkness that will open their senses to the magic of the ethers and to an entirely new world that awaits. And thus it will be through this process of trusting and allowing all that is to be that one will be purified of their fear and desire, thereby raising their frequency to a level that will prepare them for the new experience of the fifth sun. And although it is impossible to guess how and when such an event might occur, the work of other seekers and sages indicates the possibility that it could happen sometime around December 21st, 2012. For it is thought by some that the field of high vibrational cosmic rays that we are prophesied to enter on December 21st is surrounded by a densely packed band of photons, which serve as a barrier that prevents the varying elemental energies of the Ajah cycles from blending with one another. Thus it is said that the 3 days of darkness, which is experienced at the end of each sun, refers to the approximate duration that it will take for us to cross the void that separates our current frequency range of the fourth sun to the higher frequency range of the fifth, sometime around December 21st. And it is because a new sun has risen after it has seemingly died at the end of each age that the Mayans call the approaching age the time of the fifth sun, whose increased light and frequencies will open our eyes to a new experience of life, love, and oneness with all. Having thus considered how shifting one's perspective from the material to the spiritual may serve to open one's eyes to the oneness of all, let us now consider what sort of events could unfold in the next few months that might assist humanity in its evolution from a purely material-based perspective of existence to one more rooted in spirituality. As mentioned before, there are many people in the world today who, because of their focus on material success and survival, will not spare a second thought for their soul or spiritual self until they are faced with death, suffering, and the inevitable collapse of everything they have come to depend on in the material world. Thus, in accordance with the familiar phrase that it is always darkest before the dawn, it is our belief that in the coming months the world will be required to experience a level of death and destruction that will encourage its material-obsessed inhabitants to return to a more spiritual-based perspective of existence. And though it's understandable that the collapse of our material world and its systems could be quite a frightening experience, it is essential to understand here that those who learn to have faith in the spiritual purpose of these events will be given the tools and awareness that will allow them to face and flow through all of the challenges of the coming shift in relative grace and ease. We have been told that faith is the key. For when one learns to see that all beings and events exist for the divine purpose of encouraging us to seek and find that eternal peace inside with the way things are, then we may learn to see that all is, in fact, serving the divine, and therefore all is divine. And with this perspective, one may learn to move through the events of the coming months with a heart full of love and gratitude, rather than being consumed by hate and fear. And it is the power of this faith to bring us peace that is being referred to in the Hopi prophecy of the blue and red kachinas, when it says, "Life will get very perverted, and there will be little social order in these times. Many will ask for the mountains themselves to fall upon them just to end their misery, while still others will appear as if untouched by what is occurring, for they are the ones who remember the original teachings and who have reconnected their hearts and spirit." Having thus remembered the divine role that destruction may play in our spiritual evolution, let us now explore some of the potential challenges that could unfold in the next few months that might assist our soul's journey back to one. And remember here that it is not our intention with this presentation to prophesy events as they are going to occur, for it is our belief that our future is always changing as we shift the frequency of thought from which our choices are made. That said, our intention herein is to merely present some possibilities of what events could occur that might lead to the collapse of the material world as we know it, and to humanity's subsequent return to a spirit-based consciousness, and its resulting remembrance of its oneness with all. And for those who feel that the presentation of such possibilities is dangerous, because it causes fear in others, it is important here to realize that the fear is not created by the message, but rather fear is created by the one who feels it. And the truth of this may be realized when one considers that there is an increasing number of people around the world who are able to consider such events without feeling fear, while others may become restless and terrified. Let this presentation then serve to show where our vibration sits. For just as those who can face such events without fear have proven, there is a way past fearing even the most unimaginable terrors. However, no one ever escapes their fears by running from them, for fear can only ever be overcome by facing it with love. Though to many people whose perspective of the state of our world is molded by popular news and media, the idea that our entire material reality could collapse in the months between now and December 21st, 2012 might seem like a sensationalist Hollywood film. What so few people realize is that the process is already well underway. In truth, a simple string of events whose elements are already in place could cause the toppling of our existing world systems within as little as a week or 10 days. And though it may not look anything like this is how an almost unimaginable series of seemingly dark and destructive events could serve to assist all the souls of Earth in their return to one. All it would take is another staged terrorist attack, similar to that of 9/11. Except this time, rather than airplanes, the damage would be delivered by a nuclear bomb. A possibility which has begun to receive a lot of mention in films and the popular media. If such a bomb were to go off and the authorities were to link its creation to Iran, whom the US is wrongfully accusing of developing nuclear weapons, in the same way that it accused Iraq of developing weapons of mass destruction, this would pave the way for a US-led Allied attack on Iran, which would then mark the official beginning of World War III. In truth, this war has already begun, with US-led trade sanctions against Iran being imposed by the United Nations, in an effort to cripple the country's military and economic production, while the US and its allies make preparations for war. It is also known that for some months now the US has been amassing troops and weapons in Israel in preparations for a massive offensive in the Middle East. However, with the US having recently reached its $14.3 trillion debt ceiling, with the dollar flagging and the euro near collapse, and with the US already overextending itself in wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, its decision to engage in a world war along with the crippling effects of the staged terrorist attack, would crush whatever faith remained in the US markets and result in the collapse of the American dollar, which would in turn begin the spiraling collapse of all the world economies. With world oil prices hovering at record highs, the Iranian president has promised that as soon as the first bomb drops on Iran, he will set the oil fields on fire. Thus, with the value of the euro and the dollar dropped through the floor, the flaming oil fields would result in the skyrocketing of gas prices, which would then lead to the inability to transport food and other goods around the world. Statistics indicate that without steady transport, most urban centers would be depleted of food and resources within 3 days. And as quickly as that, the world would be changed forever. However, there is much research which we will post on our webpage that indicates that these are just the beginning of a series of progressively intense and unfathomable events that have been designed to be so shocking that many people who are completely unaware of them will be desperate for any form of salvation. And it will be at the point of humanity's greatest desperation that those who have orchestrated these events will provide one self-serving solution, and that is to unite the globe under the authority of a new world order. Here our existing political, economic, and military institutions would unite under a one world government, one world economy, and one world religion, which would offer to meet the immediate needs of humanity, providing food, money, and medicine, and even miracles, in exchange for complete obedience and subservience to the system. However, it is essential to understand here that even though the voice calling people to the New World Order may use the appealing words of unity, truth, and service, it will only be offering a temporary solution to the symptoms of humanity's suffering, along with promises to preserve a degree of comfort and security within a familiar system, where people are divided by the old world perspectives of good and evil, rich and poor, strong and weak. This voice will speak to people's fears and to their desires to protect and preserve the self. And all those who choose out of fear to cling to the material and continue their support of a ruling elite who have proven their lack of caring for the world and its inhabitants will, by the frequency of their own thoughts and emotions, keep themselves locked in a probability line where they will be required to experience increasingly more hardships until such a time that they are willing to put their faith in the divine spirit in all, rather than in the corrupt institutions of man or his false gods. So what sort of events could unfold in the next few months that might bring the world to such a state of desperation that it would agree to uniting the planet under the authority of a new world order? Should events similar to those mentioned previously occur, it is possible that the desperation caused by global food shortages and the collapse of the world's economies could lead to worldwide pandemonium as cities erupt in mass riots and looting, while people rise against each other and their governments in a desperate attempt to acquire food and resources for themselves and their families. This violence would be greatly compounded by the threat of nuclear war and invading forces that would be escalating around the world. Add to this the hysteria that would be caused if the earth was shrouded in 3 days of darkness that most people didn't know would end. And then add another devastating earthquake which would cause the meltdown of 30 nuclear reactors around the planet, whose radioactive waste would spill into the Earth's air and oceans. And then, at the point when the entire world seemed divided and at war with each other, and when the state of humanity seemed all but lost, we would hear news reports of a strange object approaching from space, which was previously thought to be a blue comet, but which upon its approach news reports would tell us is actually a spaceship. And to the world's surprise, from this ship would come fake alien invaders to attack the Earth, whose superior weapons and technology, actually created by our own world's military, would cause much damage and loss of life. and the world's leaders, professing themselves to be greatly overmatched, would have only one choice to save the planet, and that would be to unite the world's military forces. With the entire planet reeling from war and the effects of the devastating earthquakes caused by the prophesied approach of the purifier, people all over the world would be praying for a miracle, when all of a sudden their prayers would be answered. Somehow the Earth's allied forces would miraculously defeat the aliens in a staged final battle, seemingly through their own military might, or with assistance from other aliens, either real or fake, or even through the supernatural assistance of a false messiah-like figure. And when the world allied forces destroy the approaching ship, which was once thought to be a blue comet, we would see the fulfillment of the 9th and last sign of the Hopi prophecies, indicating that we have arrived at the end times, which reads, "You will hear of a dwelling place in the heavens, above the earth, that shall fall with a great crash. It will appear as a blue star. Very soon after this the ceremonies of my people will cease. For very soon afterward the red star kachina will return, and he shall bring with him the dawn of the 5th world." With the alien threat defeated, a broken and battered humanity would still have to deal with the wrath and destruction caused by the approaching red star kachina. And thus, in the wake of humanity's staged victory, and in the face of oncoming threats, the world's united nations would, in a show of false goodwill, speak of the oneness of humanity and call for the unification of the world under a one-world government. All of the world's debts would be erased, and a new global currency would be created, of which everyone would be offered a set number of credits in exchange for their willingness to keep working for the self-same system of governance and authority. Anyone wishing to receive these cash credits, food supplies, and medical care from this one-world system would be required to get a microchip implant that would allow their movements and ID to be tracked. And all those who do not comply with the rules and regulations of the system would simply have their chip deactivated. And at the top of this new world order, at the capstone of its pyramid of control, would be the false savior, which could appear either as an alien being or as a luminous messiah-like figure who would perform signs and miracles so great that they may deceive, if that were possible, even the elect. And though this figure may have played a role in assisting humanity through its hardships, either with the fake alien invasion or by performing miracles of medicine and technology, its deception will be obvious. For rather than inspiring humanity to see the divine in all, this God with all its wonders and miracles would have humanity focus its worship on one supposedly divine being or institution, thereby reserving a space for the old world divisions of right and wrong, good and evil. And the worship of this thing would be most likely controlled by our present-day ruling elite and popular spiritual leaders, who would place themselves in between humanity and this fake God. As fantastical as all this may sound, there is much compelling evidence that points to the possibility of such events occurring, even those as extraordinary as the fake alien invasion, the possibility of which is being planted in people's minds through the noticeably high number of alien invasion movies and television shows that have come out in the last year, including the recent National Geographic series called When the Aliens Attack, which shows how the world's military forces would face and defeat a hostile alien invasion, not if, but when it happens. And here it is essential to realize that compliance with the New World Order is a trap, just as surely as wishing harm upon those responsible for its creation. For both are reactions of fear. However, if one is able to remember that all of this death and destruction is actually serving the divine purpose of shifting us from a material-based consciousness to one founded more on spiritual awareness, then we may break away from the fearful reactions of compliance and resistance and take our first steps down the path towards the original way, mentioned in the Hopi prophecies, where everything is seen as one and sacred. For if we can learn to see that those whom we would perceive as dark or evil are in fact serving us by providing experiences that are essential on our path to self-realization, then perhaps it is also possible to see that in fact they are us, or at least an essential part of us, just as we are a part of them. This vision of oneness is reflected in the words of Rumi when he says, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense anymore." With this perspective, one may realize that all of the world's heightened chaos and conflict isn't actually the creation of one diabolical individual or organization, but rather in accordance with the universal wisdom, as above, so below. It is an exact reflection or projection of the mounting conflict raging in the hearts and souls of the collective mind, where so many individual souls who are wishing to move beyond this meaningless material existence still feel powerless to do so. However, when we see the destruction of these systems which will no longer be able to support our needs, and when our leaders whom we have relied on to keep us safe start a war that we realize could destroy the entire planet, those who have felt trapped by the system will finally let go of their dependence on it and seek a new way of living that is more in line with their inner heart's urge for peace and harmony. And thus, through the actions of those whom we would perceive to be dark or evil, we will have learned and been freed. And in accordance with the perfection of this divine plan, our ability to love and recognize our oneness with those whom some would call our oppressors will be the power that sets those oppressors free as well. For the Earth's prophesied return into the field of high vibrational cosmic rays will open up the book of life, where the thoughts and deeds of every living being throughout creation are recorded for all to see. And here every soul will have the opportunity to experience the suffering that it has caused through the course of its lives. And as those whom many would call their oppressors scan through their experiences, they will see how the hurt that they have caused is met with hate, anger, and with thoughts of revolution and murder, and they will feel justified in their cruelty. However, as they continue their search deeper into the book of life, they will come across those who, even though they suffered greatly at their hands, have felt only love. And it will be at this moment that those souls which previously knew only hate will learn the spiritual truth that a person can be redeemed just as surely by getting love as they can by giving love. And by thus learning to love and be loved, we will rise above the challenges of this dark night of the soul, to meet the dawning of the fifth sun, together as one. As our frequencies rise during the Earth's re-entry into the field of high vibrational cosmic rays, the global situation will become increasingly intense as the forces of darkness lash out in their final attempt to preserve the world of duality. This is a typical occurrence at the close of each world cycle, and one that necessarily precedes the return of the anointing light to the earth. The purpose of such timely intensity is to provide humanity the necessary challenges and trials that will allow us to purify ourselves by reflecting on the choices that we've made throughout our lives and during these times of great change. For in this period of purification, the mirror of truth will be held up for all to see at last, what we have become and which master we have truly served. And when humanity is left with no other choice but to face the truth and ourselves in utter honesty, to look, to see, and to weep in genuine repentance, then can love open our hearts and reveal to us the way of true devotion and holiness. It is thus through humble surrender that each person is given the opportunity to hasten their own spiritual growth and simultaneously transition into a bright new era. So how might the Earth's return into the field of high vibrational cosmic rays during the approach of the fifth sun affect our reality and allow for humanity's return to one? As mentioned previously, it is always darkest before the dawn, and thus we can see and expect increasingly intense events on Earth as our planet moves from the outer regions of the high vibrational cosmic field into the full light of its inner core. As our planet continues its journey, the higher vibrations pour into the subtle energy fields of our planet, causing the coarse, blocked vibrations of old ingrained delusions and selfishness to be exposed and cleansed. Thus, all anxieties, fears, and obsessions with self that obscure the light of spirit are necessarily surfacing in our lives and personalities today. And as we move towards the full light and higher vibrations of the inner Christed field, the effects of surfacing darkness will be experienced by greater numbers in increasing intensity, thus raising psychic tensions across the face of the planet. And these may be very trying times, during which our dreams, ambitions, and our very lives may be placed under the potential threat of extinction, as we will be coerced into making a choice, such as, would you agree to receive a microchip implant that will allow your movements and ID to be tracked, in exchange for food, money, medicine, and the right to continue working for our current system of governance and authority? Or would you rise up to oppose the system that you believe to be responsible for the state of the world? Or will you humbly acknowledge the part that we have all played in making this world what it is and seek another way? Again, it is impossible for us to know how the Earth's return into the field of high vibrational cosmic rays will affect our reality and allow for humanity's return to one. But respecting the power of story and imagination as the means by which we may navigate the unknown, we offer the following with the intention of inspiring people to empty their cups of what they believe is true in order to allow for the inpouring of new revelations. That said, it is widely accepted in both the realms of science and spirituality that the human body, comprised mostly of water, is a conductor of sound, light, and information, all of which travel through our bodies as vibrations. Aware of this, we may now imagine that as the higher vibrations of the cosmic rays move through us, they will cause our bodies to resonate with their frequency. Thus, as our vibrations rise and match the never-before experienced frequency levels of the cosmic rays, we will be able to perceive higher levels of the electromagnetic spectrum, at which point we will be able to perceive all of the sounds, images, and entities that exist within our newly achieved range of frequency. Vibrating at this level, the spirits of the dead may be seen and heard, rising to meet the coming dawn, as humanity expands its senses and consciousness to perceive the forgotten fifth element of ether, that which connects us all. Here, too, we may perceive the parallel realms of the astral planes and share encounters with mythical beings, all of whom will attend us and the rest of humanity as our increasing frequency brings us all closer to a collective experience of oneness. As we reach the peak of frequency, the voices of others that we have begun to hear in our heads will rise in numbers and climax at the point when we hear all the thoughts of creation and experience all actions as if they were our own. So too may it seem like all the events of these lives are happening at once, and that all places are this place. As one may imagine, this expanded perspective of oneness could be quite an intense experience. And for those who choose to hold on to their knowledge of what is and is not possible, such events will threaten to shatter their psyches as every sense is simultaneously overloaded. Thoughts of good or evil will give rise to those of their dualistic opposites and attract like energies that further threaten the traveler's ability to stay safe and sane. And here we will have a choice, to either clutch to the banks of that raging river and be dashed against the rocks, or to simply let go and surrender to the roar and the flow. Some will try to hide from this experience. Some will try to escape it. Some will welcome it. Some will recognize it. And some will have known all their lives that the end would be like this, exactly like this. As the truth of oneness, followed by divine love, returns to our ailing planet, those who love the truth and who are therefore consecrated to serving the truth without compromise or self-concern will greatly rejoice at the shattering of the illusion of separation. And when at long last humanity is awakened to its oneness with the earth and all living things, we will raise our voices as one and join the eternal song of the universe. Have faith, for we are awakening as one.
All at once, all I see is eyes looking back at me, and all is one looking through the eye that's looking back at you.
Excellent. Just do it again.